Greetings and welcome to another reading session from the After Midnight series here on WooFDRiver.com. I'm Bentley Bryant and I will be reading today The Greatest Escape Ever Part 4, subtitled Kimi Ooze. Fearing for his life, Oscar moved as far and as fast as he could in order to put as much distance between himself and the two humans as he possibly could. He left them at the base of the manhole, but he was smart enough to know that their bodies would be discovered fairly quickly. He was moving south for nearly 2 hours, and now he finally stopped to take a break. Naturally, he was hungry again, so he gobbled down another bag of his snacks. His food baggie count now being 4, Oscar, not really sure how far he was from his final destination, started to get really paranoid about running out of food. Along his journey, he'd spotted more than a few juicy rats down below the streets, but couldn't fathom the idea of biting into one of them. The thought grossed him out completely, and he figured he'd surely die if he consumed one of those filthy, stinky, germy things. Ew. So he'd have to find an alternative if he wanted to survive his own escape. Hours earlier, Araya woke up from a deep sleep and let out a big yawn. She'd had a full day on Friday that led to dinner and a movie for her and her parents. During school, she made another picture of her and Oscar and couldn't wait to show it to him. Excited, she crawled out of her parents' bed and raced down to her bedroom. "Oscar," Araya called for him as she grabbed up her backpack. Pulling out her drawing, as she had done a million times, she turned and noticed that he was not there. "Oscar, are you hiding from me? Oscar?" Now feeling a little panicked, Araya looked everywhere throughout her room, under her bed, in her closet, on her shelves, behind her bed, behind her dresser, everywhere, and no Oscar. "Where are you?" She ran out of her room and back into her parents. "Mommy," excuse me, "Mommy, Daddy, Oscar is missing. Oscar is missing." Startling both of her parents from their sleep, her mom responded, "What, Araya? What are you talking about?" Araya, now overtaken with emotion, began to cry. "Oscar is gone and I don't know where he is." Both of her parents hopped out of bed to console her. "Honey, are you sure?" asked her mom, looking over at her dad. As her mom hugged her, her dad raced over to her room to look for Oscar. Where could he be? After thoroughly looking through her room, he returned to his room and confirmed that Oscar was indeed gone by just a glance to his wife. Araya was asleep from being emotionally drained. Her mom began to cry silently as she held her baby girl in her arms. Laying her down gently, her mom signaled for her husband to meet her in the hallway. "What in the world? Are you sure Oscar's not in there?" "Trust me, honey, I looked everywhere. I even did a quick scan throughout the apartment. As ridiculous as it sounds, he's gone." As they both stood there, bewildered, each thought what the other wouldn't say. With the top-of-the-line security the building had, in order for Oscar to be missing, he would have left on his own. But that was impossible. Or was it? Oscar knew that Araya's parents were smart enough to eventually figure out exactly what he'd done, even though he did his best to cover his tracks. It took a few days and a few noticeable clues, but when Araya's mom found the unlocked bathroom window, it all became clear. Unbelievable, but crystal clear. Having nearly a 3-day head start, Oscar was long gone before any of the missing signs went up throughout the neighborhood. Being quite the artist, Araya convinced her parents to use the picture she'd drawn in class the day Oscar had taken off. At this point, there was a citywide manhunt for Rhea's pet. It's odd, but most people saw the sign, automatically thought either dog or cat. Oscar was neither of the two, and he was safe as long as he remained underground. The shadows beneath the streets was his best chance of surviving long enough to get to his final destination. But there was a bigger obstacle facing Oscar. An hour had passed since he ate his last food baggie of snacks, and he was starting to get hungry again. It must have been all the energy he was exerting to keep moving. He was starting to realize that he had totally misjudged his journey and the time it would take him to get to where he had planned to go. He sensed that he was drawing near because he could smell it, hungry or not. He had to keep plugging away until he reached his final destination. He was excited about getting there, but the non-stop journey for the past few hours had taken a toll on him. He was exhausted and needed badly to take a nap. He traveled another mile or two before slowing down to listen to his body. Hoping that he would be able to stall his growing appetite, Oscar found a nice warm spot there in the sewers and dozed off to Sleepyland. Suddenly, a ground-shaking noise startled Oscar awake. Now there were screams just above ground where he had been resting. Even more screams followed those, and Oscar became concerned. Above ground, it was a scene of mad chaos. A semi-truck being driven by an overly cautious, underpaid driver swerved his extended rig in order not to hit a puppy that ran into the street. The driver spared the pup's life, but ran into several cars along the side of the street. Miraculously, no one died because of the accident that day, but quite a few people had been shaken up. The company, Cosman Chemical Company, had been extremely careful since its opening 10 years ago. No recorded accidents until now. The company was responsible for creating a top-secret toxic chemical ooze. Chemical ooze was an experimental substance used in landfills to help dissolve waste, trash, and other random items found in a landfill. The glowing lime green substance looked like something from a sci-fi movie. Its consistency was similar to that of an oozy jello, and how it would react to different conditions was unknown by its creators. Unfortunately, the driver would never make it to his original landfill destination today. And even more unfortunate, the crash caused one of the 6 large canisters to crack, secretly releasing about a gallon of the chemical ooze, or chemi ooze as it was called in the lab. Once free, it moved quickly to a nearby street drain, unseen by the crowd due to all the commotion caused by the crash. The drain led down to an area about 10 feet away from where Oscar had been resting, and now wondering what all the activity was about on the street above him. A corner in the sewer separated him from the chemi ooze. So even though he saw the weird green glow as soon as it entered the sewer, high above him around the corner, he had no idea what was about to happen. As the chemi ooze slid down the wall, its substance completely cleaned the wall in a path behind it. It didn't happen right away, but it happened. But the more the chemi ooze moved, the more it seemed to take on the movement of a living thing. At one point, it looked behind itself and seemed to admire its work.